Some bikers ride for freedom, but the trouble-seeking ones ride for attention, the kind they get from intimidating anyone who happens to be in their way. Today, their focus shifted to a woman who had spent her entire life serving coffee and simple kindness. They shoved her, mocked her, even grabbed her arm when she calmly asked them to stop. The rest of the room stayed silent, uneasy and unsure. Everyone except the man sitting only a few feet away. Jason Statham set his fork down, and the diner would remember what followed. Before we continue, I want to take a brief moment to thank you for being here. Your support, your likes, comments, and time means more than you can imagine. If you enjoy these emotional, real-life inspired stories and want more of them, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment. Now, let's return to the story. Some bikers ride because the open road is the only place they feel alive. Others ride because loud engines make them feel powerful. On most days, May's Diner welcomed the first kind. Truckers just passing through. Local riders who tipped well, treated the older waitress with respect, and held the door on their way out. But not today. Outside, the late afternoon sky looked washed out and dull. Heavy clouds hovered over the narrow highway, the sort that made everything feel slower. Inside, the lights buzzed softly, the coffee machine hissed, and an old country song drifted from the jukebox like it had nowhere else to go. At the counter, Alina wiped a coffee ring from the laminate and smiled at a customer old enough to be her brother. "Another refill, sweetheart?" she asked, raising the pot. "You're going to flood me out of here one day, Ellie," he joked. "You'd be lucky," she replied gently. Alina had worked in this diner longer than many of the photos on its walls had been hanging. She was small, thin, her silver hair pinned neatly into a bun. Her hands were lined and knuckles worn, yet they moved with steady grace, cleaning, pouring, setting plates down with practiced care. Most travelers stopped here once and forgot the place by the next town. Nobody forgot her. She remembered regulars by name, strangers by their mood, and everyone by their coffee order. "Black, no sugar, right? Extra cream. Don't worry, I won't mention it to your wife. 1 pancake instead of 2. I'm protecting your heart, trust me." The owner stayed mostly in the back, counting supplies and thinking about bills. The cook shouted orders. The regulars chatted about nothing in particular. It was an ordinary day, the kind that blended into the one before it. In a corner booth by the window, a man in a dark jacket sat quietly with a plate of eggs, one hand wrapped around a mug of black coffee. His cap was pulled low, head slightly bowed. Most people didn't recognize him when he preferred to stay unnoticed. Jason liked that about small places like this. Nobody cared who you were on a movie screen. They cared if you tipped fairly, if you were polite, if you respected the woman who had been pouring coffee here since the 80s. He observed the room without making it obvious. Old instinct, old training, things that never fully leave. Door angles, tension, who looked uneasy, who seemed calm, who appeared to be hiding something. He wasn't expecting any trouble. He had come for quiet. But as usual, the universe had other plans. The first sign was the noise. Motorcycles, not just one, but several. Engines rumbling low at first, then rising, growing close enough that the glasses behind the counter gave a faint shake on their shelf. The regulars glanced up. The older man near the window inhaled slowly. "Sounds like a herd," he said. Through the front glass, they watched them pull in. 4 bikes, then 2 more. Leather, denim, dark helmets, patches on jackets that no one inside wanted to stare at for long. The cook leaned out from the kitchen pass-through, eyes narrowing. "You expecting a club?" he asked. The owner immediately shook his head. "Not me." Elena looked toward the door. Her heart gave a single, weary thump. She had dealt with trouble before. Young men trying to act tough. Girls working hard not to show fear. She had calmed more arguments with free pie than some bouncers did in years. But these felt different, she thought. Heavier, harsher. The first biker walked in without wiping his boots. The door's bell gave a weak jingle, and then fell quiet, almost as if it understood. He was large, broad-shouldered, wearing a leather vest over a hoodie, with a thick beard and tattoos running up his neck. 3 more followed, then 2, and a final younger one who didn't look as tough as he wanted to appear. Their arrival shifted the atmosphere, like a sudden draft slipping through everyone's spine. They settled into a loose line near the counter, scanning the room, taking it in. Elena stepped forward first. That's what you did after years in this job. You approached before things had a chance to turn. Afternoon, gents, she said, keeping her tone light and steady. Kitchen's open. You want a booth or the counter? The leader glanced at her name tag, then at her. That's so, he said, voice slow and slick. Whole place is open, huh? Till 10. She nodded. You'll have to share me with the rest of these folks, but I'll take care of you. A couple of regulars gave stiff, uneasy smiles, trying not to show concern. Jason, seated in his corner booth, watched with half-lidded eyes, appearing relaxed. The leader slapped one of his men on the back. Hear that, boys? She's going to share herself with everybody here. His tone made a few of the others smirk. Elena's cheeks warmed slightly, but she kept her posture firm. Coffee to start? She asked, ignoring the way he bent her words. He chuckled. I like her, he said. Yes, sweetheart. Coffee for all of us. We'll let you know if we need anything else. The way he emphasized anything else made one biker laugh too loud. Jason's fingers tightened around his mug. He didn't react otherwise. He simply observed. Elena turned away and walked toward the coffee pot. Her steps were steady, though she could feel their eyes on her, not as customers, but as men looking for an opening. Leave it alone, she told herself. Just another tough group. You've handled worse. She poured 4 mugs, grabbed sugar and cream, and returned. The leader watched her movements closely. Easy, he murmured to his group. Hot coffee can be interesting. 2 of them snickered. Jason caught every word. He set his fork down. Not yet, he told himself. Don't assume. Sometimes trouble leaves when you don't fuel it. Elena reached the counter and placed the mugs down carefully. Here you go, sugar, she said. Anything to eat? Chili's fresh. Burgers, fries, pie. One biker, his arms covered in ink from wrist to bicep, winked. You on the menu? The others burst into laughter. Elena flinched for the briefest moment. Jason noticed instantly. That brief flash of hurt on her face appeared before she hid it again. Just the food, darling, she said quietly. The leader leaned forward. Come on, lads. Be polite. Granny here's working hard. The word hung in the air like a slap. Granny. Not ma'am, not miss, just something meant to belittle, to shrink her. But Elena had heard far worse. Age had given her one advantage. Skin thick enough to take an insult without letting it cut deep. She forced a small smile. Let me know when you're ready to order. She started to turn away. His hand shot out, wrapping around her wrist. The entire diner froze. She inhaled sharply, barely audible. Hold up, he said. We're not done talking. His grip was firm, fingers pressing into her thin skin. Old joints strained under the pressure. Sir, please, she said softly. You're hurting me. That should have been enough for any reasonable man. He smirked. Am I? One of his friends laughed. Another lifted his phone as if this were entertainment. Jason's jaw tightened. Heat rose in his chest, not explosive anger, but a slow, heavy pressure. The younger biker at the back shifted. Boss, he muttered, uneasy. Come on, she's old. Let her go. The leader didn't so much as glance at him. Got ears painted on, kid, he growled. We're just talking. He turned back to Elena. You got kids, sweetheart? She swallowed. Yes, she lied. Her daughter lived states away and only called on holidays, but she had no idea what this man wanted that information for. Bet they don't visit much, he continued. Leave you here serving coffee to strangers. Nobody to look out for you. Nobody to step in for you. His words carried more purpose than his tone suggested. Jason recognized this wasn't simple mockery. He was pushing limits, seeing how far he could go before someone stopped him. Elena's eyes glistened, but she blinked back the tears. I don't need anyone to stand up for me, she said quietly. His grip tightened. You sure about that? The air in the diner thickened. Regulars stared down at their plates, ashamed and worried. Because here's the hard truth. Most people aren't cowards. They're just afraid of being the first to move. The cook gripped the counter's edge, ready to intervene if it came to that, but hoping it wouldn't. In the corner, Jason placed his coffee cup down. The ceramic clicked lightly on the table. He stood. No rush. No raised voice. No dramatic push of his chair. He stood as if the air had grown too heavy to sit in anymore. 2 seats behind the bikers, he walked toward the counter, steady, controlled, each step deliberate. The younger biker noticed first, eyes widening slightly. He nudged the man beside him. Hey, isn't that? Shut up, the man hissed. Elena felt her fingers grow numb under the biker's grip. Sir, please, she whispered. The leader leaned in, breath sour with cigarettes and stale beer. "Say boss," he ordered. "Not sir." Jason's voice came then, low and steady. "I think she was fine with sir." The leader turned his head slowly, like someone annoyed by an unexpected interruption. He looked Jason up and down. Recognition flickered in his eyes, but a moment too late. "You," he began. Jason's gaze dropped to his hand on Elena's wrist, then returned to his eyes. "Let her go," Jason said. No threat, no display, just a calm, fixed statement. The room fixated on that single point of contact. His hand, her skin, Jason's stare. The leader gave a half-smile. "Look at that," he muttered. "Knight in shining armor. Didn't know Hollywood sent their finest to little diners like this." One of his men snickered. Jason didn't react. "Last time," he said quietly. "Let her go." Silence pressed against the windows. Elena's eyes darted between them, panic rising. She sensed it building, the shift in the air right before a storm. The leader shrugged casually. "Or what?" he asked. He squeezed her wrist harder. She winced, a small sound escaping. That was all Jason needed to hear. He stepped closer, prompting the other bikers to shift uneasily. Jason's hand moved. Not fast, not frantic. Controlled. Intentional. He grasped the biker's thumb and the side of his hand, twisting with practiced precision. A sharp pop followed. The leader hissed, releasing Elena instantly, his body folding as pain shot through his arm. Jason guided the motion, not enough to break anything, but enough to deliver a message to both bone and pride. The biker stumbled back, his chair scraping loudly. One of his men jumped to his feet. "Hey!" Two others rose as well. Chairs skidded. Coffee splashed. The old man in the corner whispered, "Oh boy." Elena retreated, holding her wrist, eyes wide. Jason stayed where he was, center of the tension, shoulders loose, expression steady. The leader straightened with a pained groan, clutching his hand. "You broke my damn thumb," he snarled. Jason shook his head. "If I broke it," he said quietly, "you'd be yelling a lot louder." One biker stepped toward him, shoulders forward, fists ready. "I think you owe our boss an apology," he growled. Jason glanced at him briefly, then looked back at the leader. "I'm not talking to you," he said. "I'm speaking to the man who thought grabbing an elderly woman made him tough." The biker's face flushed. He lunged. A hand caught his shoulder. It was the younger biker. His voice trembled but held firm. "Stop. Just stop," he said. "This isn't right, man." Everyone stared. The leader's glare sharpened. "You taking his side?" he snapped. The kid swallowed. "I'm choosing not to be the guy who beats up a waitress in front of a whole room." And there it was, a small shift. Not chairs moving or boots scraping, but doubt working its way into their group. Jason remained silent. He knew this part had to come from inside their own ranks. The leader straightened, rolling his wrist, trying to rebuild the authority Jason had shaken. He stepped toward Jason again. "You think this is over?" he hissed. "You think walking in here and twisting my hand makes you some sort of hero?" Jason shook his head once. "No," he said, "standing between you and her. That's just basic decency. A hero would have stepped in earlier." That line hit everyone in the room. The regulars, the cook, even the younger biker in the cut-off leather jacket who wouldn't lift his eyes. Anger surged across the leader's face, turning his cheeks red. "You don't know who you're dealing with," he snapped. Jason's expression cooled. "I've spent my life dealing with men like you," he replied. "You don't intimidate me." The leader stepped back once, then again. But backing down wasn't something he understood. Payback was. He raised his voice so the whole diner could hear. "You like this place?" he growled. "You like this cute little diner and your sweet little waitress?" He shot Jason a wicked grin. "Then watch what happens when you leave." Jason's stare sharpened. "What did you just say?" The leader nodded toward the door. "You heard me. You don't own her or this place. You walk out. We stay. We eat. We drink. We do whatever we want." Elena's breathing quickened. "We don't want trouble," she whispered, but he ignored her completely. "We'll leave her a tip," he said coldly. "Might not be cash, but she won't forget it." The other bikers laughed, though uneasily. Jason stepped forward, then stopped. The situation had shifted. This wasn't about a grabbed wrist anymore. This had become a threat to Elena's safety, her dignity, the diner, and everyone inside who would remain after he walked out. Then Jason understood. He couldn't simply embarrass this man and let him leave angry. That anger would return to her. He had to settle this now, and settle it fully. Jason's voice was quieter, but it carried even further. "You're not staying," he said. "You're going to get up, walk out that door, and leave this place alone." The leader barked a short laugh. "Or what?" Jason met his eyes. "Or I won't stop at your hand this time." The room went still. The bikers began spreading out, forming a loose half-ring around him. The cook slipped back into the kitchen, reaching under the counter for the phone, his fingers shaking over the emergency digits. Elena stood behind Jason, clutching her wrist, heart racing. She'd seen drunks fight before, young guys puffing their chests, but never anything like this. Never with a man standing this calm, decades older than the trouble walking toward him. The leader rolled his shoulders. "So that's how it is," he muttered. "Boys, looks like Movie Man wants to give us a show." Two bikers shifted, ready to leap forward. The youngest stayed back, torn between loyalty and conscience. Jason adjusted his stance just slightly. Everything in him said this would get worse before it got better. And just as the first biker stepped in, jaw tight, fist raised, the bell over the door chimed. Every head turned. Someone new stepped in from the fading daylight. A familiar figure Jason wasn't expecting yet. A small voice broke the tension. "Dad." Jason's daughter stood in the doorway, backpack still hanging off one shoulder. Fear and confusion mixing in her eyes as she looked from the bikers to her father to Elena trembling behind him. And in that moment, with danger closing in and the most important person in his life standing in the entrance, Jason realized this wasn't just about protecting an older waitress. It was about making sure his daughter never learned what happened when decent people stayed silent. The next move he made would change everything. The bell jingled again, soft, harmless, cutting through the tension louder than any yell. Jason's daughter, Leela, stood there with wind-pink cheeks and messy hair from her walk home. A pencil stuck out of her backpack zipper like it was trying to escape. She blinked at the scene. The bikers, their half-circle, her father ready to fight, and Elena trembling behind him. "Dad, what's going on?" she asked. Every biker froze. Nothing undermines a tough act faster than being watched by a child. Jason didn't turn around. His eyes stayed locked on the leader, but something in him shifted. A line that had already been drawn was now carved deep. "Leela," he said gently, "go stand with Mr. Ray in the booth." The old trucker in the corner booth lifted a hand. "Come on over, sweetheart. You're safe here." Leela didn't move at first. She didn't want to leave her dad. Then she saw Elena's bruised wrist. Her eyes widened. "Dad, did they hurt her?" That one question made every biker's stomach tighten. Jason's tone stayed low and controlled, sharp enough to cut stone. "Go on, Leela," he repeated. This time she obeyed, moving past the edge of the biker's circle. None of them tried to stop her, not after seeing Jason's look when she walked too close. The leader's smirk returned, thin and mean. "Oh, this just gets better," he said. "Didn't know we had a family man here." Jason replied quietly, "My daughter doesn't need to hear anything from you." The leader lifted his chin. "Why? Scared she'll find out what her dad does? How he starts fights in diners?" Jason breathed out slowly. "You grabbed an elderly woman," he said. "You threatened her. You threatened this place. You threatened everyone in it." He took another step forward, close enough now that their boots almost touched. "I didn't start this," Jason said. The leader shrugged. "You're the one about to finish it." He lifted his uninjured hand and snapped his fingers. Two bikers moved in. The one on Jason's right rushed first, throwing his full weight forward as if brute strength alone would knock Jason down. Jason pivoted, quick, controlled, caught the man's momentum, shifted his hip, and sent him crashing onto a nearby table. Plates shattered, coffee spilled, and the biker rolled off groaning, arms wrapped around his ribs. The second biker swung wildly. Jason slipped under the punch and countered with a firm elbow to the man's sternum. Air burst from the biker's chest as he dropped to one knee, coughing hard. Diners gasped and ducked behind booths. Leela cupped her hands around her mouth, eyes wide. "Dad." Jason glanced at her for the briefest moment, then locked back in. Another biker charged. Jason stepped toward him, caught his jacket, and slammed him onto the counter with enough force to rattle every spoon inside the sugar caddy. Elena backed away, holding her wrist, stunned. 3 bikers were down. 4 remained, including the leader. The youngest biker still hadn't moved, neither forward nor back. He simply stood there, fists tight, guilt and hesitation written all over him. "Boss," he said, voice unsteady. Please stop. She's hurt. Let's just leave. Shut up, the leader snapped without even turning. Then he faced Jason, anger rising. You think you're something special, huh? Some hero? You think knocking down my men makes you a man? Jason's stare stayed steady. No, he replied softly. What makes someone a man is how he treats people who can't fight back. The leader scoffed. Like her. He pointed toward Elena. Jason stepped forward, closing the last inch between them. Exactly. The leader lunged. He wasn't as fast as he looked. Strength without skill, frustration without control. His punch came in wide and clumsy. Jason ducked under it, stepped inside his reach, and delivered a clean strike to the ribs. The leader folded slightly, and Jason followed with a knee to the stomach. He stumbled back, breath gone. Jason didn't give him space. He grabbed the man's vest, twisted, and sent him crashing to the floor. Dust shook from the vents overhead. The diner went silent. Only the hum of the lights and the strained breathing of the bikers filled the room. Jason stood over the leader, calm, firm, finished. The leader tried to rise, holding his ribs and groaning. Jason crouched enough so only he could hear. This is where it stops. You stand up, walk out, and tell your men this place is off limits. You come near her again, come near this diner again, and this will be the easy day. The leader swallowed hard. Real fear finally appeared on his face. Jason stepped back and raised his voice so the entire diner heard. Get out. The leader pushed himself up, unsteady. He glared at his men. We're leaving, he said sharply. One biker started to object, but the leader barked again, we're leaving. They rushed out, bruised, embarrassed, defeated. Only the youngest paused. He looked at Elena, really looked, and said with a breaking voice, I'm sorry, ma'am. Elena blinked. The young biker then faced Jason. And thank you. Jason gave a small nod. The kid hurried out. The bell rang. The door shut. Silence settled. Elena finally drew a full breath, the first since everything began. Her eyes filled, and then tears slipped down. Oh, Jason, she whispered. Thank you. I didn't know what they would. I didn't know. He stepped closer gently. You don't need to explain, he said quietly. It's over. She shook her head. No, not really. He frowned. What do you mean? Elena looked around. The diners watching nervously, Leela staring at her father with worry, Mr. Ray shaking hands, the owner peeking from the back. Then she admitted something she had never told anyone. I didn't tell the boss they'd been here before, she said softly. A few months ago, different members, same group. They didn't hurt anyone, but they cornered me behind the diner. Said they liked my smile. Said older women should be grateful for attention. Jason's stomach dropped. Elena, he said quietly, why didn't you tell anyone? She gave a weak shrug. I didn't want to bother anyone. Jason shook his head, anger and sadness mixing. You're not a burden. You've kept this place alive longer than any of us. You deserve more respect than any of those men could ever show. A tear traced down her face. Leela stepped forward carefully, unsure if she should speak. Miss Elena, she whispered. Yes, sweetheart. Are you okay? Elena managed a small, shaky smile. I am now. Jason turned to his daughter, kneeling. You all right? He asked. She nodded, then wrapped her arms around him. He held her close, and when he pulled back, she looked troubled. Dad, why do grown men act like that? She asked. Why do people think they can hurt others? Jason gently pushed her hair behind her ear. Because some men confuse fear with power. But fear isn't beaten by shouting. It's beaten by stepping forward when no one else will. Leela nodded slowly. But, were you scared? Jason paused for only a moment. Yes, he said quietly. I was scared when you walked in. Scared you'd see something no child should. She rested her forehead against his. But you protected everyone. He smiled. I protected the people who needed me. The owner stepped out finally. Jason, he said shakily, I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to. No, I do. You saved us. Jason shook his head. I just didn't let bullies do what bullies do. Elena wiped her face. Then she suddenly remembered. Your food, she gasped. It must be cold. Let me make you another plate. Jason placed his hand gently on hers. Elena, he said, sit down for a moment. She blinked. I haven't sat during a shift since the Clinton administration. Jason smiled. Then you're overdue. He helped her into a booth. The diners slowly returned to their seats, not because the fear was gone, but because the room had shifted from danger to something steadier. respect, relief. Jason stood in the center, rolling his shoulders as if shaking off weight from another life. The chaos had ended, but the echoes stayed. Leela tugged at his sleeve. Dad, yes, sweetheart. Are you going to stay here forever? Like, be the diner's superhero? Jason chuckled softly. No, but I'll come whenever they need me. Leela nodded, satisfied. Elena, still trembling slightly, whispered, Thank God you were here. Jason heard her and spoke quietly, only for her. I'm where I'm needed. He returned to his booth. Outside, the world seemed a little less threatening that day. Because sometimes heroes don't wear capes. Sometimes they're simply people who refuse to let cruelty continue. And sometimes the quietest individuals stand the tallest when others need them most.